My name is LeRoy Jones. I am the co-PI and also executive director for the Illinois Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation, which has been in existence for about 23 years. I've been the project director for that program for the last 16 years. And then also, I'm also the co-PI and also project director for the Lewis Stokes Midwest Center of Excellence. And that's what I would like to talk with you about today. I'd like to start off by thanking Dr. McHenry as well as all the organizers for giving me the opportunity to talk about a project that has really kind of taken on legs and a life of its own over the last 4 years, and that's the Lewis Stokes Midwest Center of Excellence. So about 5 years ago, nestled away in one of the broadening participation RFPs was a proposal to create what they called a Lewis Stokes Pilot Center of Excellence. And to be honest with you, I kind of blew over it. I didn't even really notice it. It wasn't until I received a call from Dr. Kim Nguyen from IUPUI that she, one of my co-PIs is in the audience today, who made me aware of it and said, hey, you know, let's talk about this. I remember soon after calling Dr. Hicks and talking with Dr. Hicks to try to get an idea of what they were looking for, and he said really it was something new. You know, they wanted just to have some creative ideals, so get a group together and pitch the ideal and just see where you land. You know, so with that, we actually gathered a team together that wrote a proposal and really kind of just a diversity of institutions. So for example, Chicago State University, I already told you that we've had an LSAMP program for 23 years now, predominantly black institution. Dr. Kim Nguyen and Dr. Pamela Shaw was at IUPUI in Indianapolis, a larger R1 type school who also at the time had an LSAMP program. We also teamed up with Argonne National Laboratory with Miss Meredith Brewis there. And those were really the three principles that wrote the proposal. Later on, we brought on Guardians of Honor, and I'll be talking a little bit about what they're doing, but they're kind of a private company that worked on a digital library. And then, of course, Dr. Suki Blanc, who was our external evaluator from Creative Reach Evaluations. Well, what we pitched was that we wanted to create a center that served as a repository and also a disseminator of best practices within the LSAMP institutions. What we found when you talk to a lot of the LSAMPs that we called around to, we did a great job of sharing best practices within the alliances. But in terms of that kind of disseminating out to non-LSAMP institutions, we wasn't doing a good job there. You know, so what we proposed was to work with 28 non-LSAMP institutions in the Midwest. That was our goal, to essentially, you know, disseminate, you know, these best practices and work with these institutions. Now, the 5 Midwestern states, or the 6 Midwestern states that we chose were Illinois, and then all of the institutions that bordered around the state of Illinois. So when we approached this, we really approached it with 3 objectives in dealing with these non-LSAMP schools. The first thing that we wanted to do was really to take a leadership role in really articulating the critical need for getting underrepresented minorities in the sciences. That's what we really wanted to convey to these schools. And we had 3 strategies for really carrying this out. The first thing that we had to do was we had to identify these 28 schools. And we did that based on some various metrics, but really kind of looking at the enrollment, the retention rate, and graduation rates of the schools, you know, in the particular areas. Right now in our 4th year, we recruited about 20 institutions, and we're on course to have 28 as we go into our 5th year. The second thing that we wanted to do is what LSAMP does best. Could we take essentially 28 schools and get them to collaborate or network with each other, you know, to form this type of alliance? But the key is this, without receiving any funding per se, you know, from it. So that was the huge challenge that we had to try to overcome. And then the third thing, just in terms of articulating the need, we wanted to pull these institutions together, you know, once a year at a conference to talk about, you know, both for their students as well as for faculty, staff, and administrators, those things that the institutions can do really to increase the enrollment, graduation rates, and trying to get those students to matriculate either into graduate school or into the STEM workforce. So that was the first objective. When we looked at the second objective, we wanted to, in a sense, and keep in mind that we were trying to encourage these 28 institutions to participate, okay, without receiving any direct funding from the LSMCE. It was a huge challenge. So what we had to pitch to them was, one thing, we would provide support for those particular faculty and students to come to our conference. But the other thing, we wanted to create an online resource, for these particular students as well as faculty and administration. And really, when you looked at our program, it was really geared at the administrators and the faculty to get them to buy in so they can make the impact, with the students. So we approached that several ways. One thing that we're constantly doing now, which many of you pretty much get our alerts, we do a series of webinars, where we invite, different people to participate. We also have, different workshops that kind of spotlight, those activities that can increase minority participation, in STEM. And then the other thing that has been very, very helpful for our institutions is actually helping them to identify, support that they can apply for. Now, being a part of the LSMCE is quite valuable for them because when they say they're part of the LSMCE, it shows whatever entity, whatever agency that they're applying to, that they're certainly trying to broaden participation. And then with a letter from myself or Dr. Nguyen or the others, it kind of adds credibility, for those institutions so that they can actually try to leverage their funding. Two parts of that, in dealing with that. One was really faculty focus. So we did the webinars for the faculty focus, and really that was around building community. That was the aim that we had. And then, of course, for the students, it was really virtual support. So having these students go, participate in the webinars as well as some of the other events, and really just trying to encourage them to persist, in the STEM disciplines. So those were the first two objectives. The third thing that we set out to do to attract these schools was to establish what we called the CLSMCE, which was kind of a cyberspace. And that space was really to disseminate information to just a variety of audiences. So essentially what we did, and as I said a little bit earlier, from time to time you'll receive notices about webinars for both faculty as well as staff. We also invite students in to kind of talk with online chats. Other things that we have going on, you hear about different conferences, and for our students, a lot of times, just job opportunities. I know that a lot of the PIs and project directors in this room know that around November, really December, January, and February, you get just inundated with opportunities for our students. And one of the things that we do there with that information, we actually post it to our website, so students can see their opportunities. And what we're starting to notice, not only students, but also things are opening up for faculty members. Another piece of that third piece is actually working with Argonne National Laboratory, who has been a partner with the Illinois LSAMP since it started almost 23 years ago. And I can just say, dealing with Argonne in the last, I would say, 15 years from the Illinois Alliance, we've had the opportunity to send about upward of 30 faculty members to national labs, and then also another about 130 students to national labs to either work during the summer or through the academic year. So they have proven to really be a great partner. But what Argonne does is to really give the students an insight into what it is to be a government scientist. A lot of the students have no clue. And, to be honest with you, I really didn't have a clue what a government scientist did either until I became a postdoc and started looking into the opportunity once I left the postdoctoral stage. So those are the three objectives. Real quickly, and I know my time is running out here, got about 3 or 4 more minutes. I want to talk a little bit about a supplemental grant that we received over the last 2 or 3 years, and that's with Guardians of Honor. So I recall visiting Dr. Hicks' office, and at one time when you went in his office, there were just heaps of information all in his office, and he was kind of tucked away in a little corner, and you would talk to him in that little corner. So one of the things that we proposed to him was actually taking that information that he had, all that is historical data over the last 25 years, and digitizing it. And that's what we've been working on the last 3 years with the Guardian of Honor. About 3 years ago at our initial conference, Guardian of Honor came out with a searchable CD. And what we've been doing over the last 2 years is trying to take that where it's actually a digital library on our website. We've been funded for 2 cycles with that. We have a 3rd request that's out that's still pending, but we hope definitely within the next couple of months to have that out, where you can actually go to the LSMCE website and actually be able to search those historical documents, where it will show information from all of our alliances and the good work that we've done over the last 25 years. So real quickly, just want to talk with you about successes. And when I say successes, I'm talking about with non-LSAMP schools, not so much with the LSAMP schools. One big success that we've seen, that we've been able to serve as that repository and then also disseminator of LSAMP best practices. And it has really helped us to, in a sense, if you allow me to use the word, infiltrate the higher administration at these institutions. So when we visit, they take it very seriously. We have conversations from the president all the way down to the faculty. Typically, they're day-long conversations talking about the LSAMP program and what the program can do to help them broaden participation. And we've really seen that on the campus as we monitor that through our external evaluator, that it's really been kind of an increased visibility, for the broadening participation programs on campus. One thing that I want to note was that we've really kind of served as a connector. When we went to these campuses, people were working kind of in silos, in different places. And this was the first time when they met with us that we actually pulled them together just to have a common conversation so that we can put them on a path to work together, so that they can have more impact at their institutions. Another thing that we've been able to do with their students, especially with Argonne National Laboratory, they've been able to increase opportunities in working in the lab and other places, and then I already spoke to the external funding. We're very excited about our conferences each year. One of our concerns was when we started this center, how could we create a center and still have buy-in from the various alliances? So you had this new center, percolating up. There's probably a little bit of suspicion around it. What is the NSF trying to do? What we found out is that the PIs, from the various alliances were very helpful and actually fed into the LSMCE, and a lot of things that you see on our website, as well as information that we disseminate, actually comes from, all of the LSAMP programs inside of the LSAMP program. The last thing that I want to bring out is that we've been very excited about, which we really didn't visualize, was that we became kind of a network of networks. And what I mean by that, we were able to pull together a lot of different constituencies. So, of course, the non-LSAMP schools, we had the LSAMP schools, we also had within the NSF partners from the RAUs, the ERCs, as well as from industry. The last thing, if you allow me, just real quick, I just want to talk about some of the challenges, and just kind of have about the 5 challenges that we saw when we visited these particular schools, the non-LSAMP schools. Now, these will not be, rocket scientists for the people in this room. We've been working with this over the last 25 years, but it just really kind of just showed, especially at institutions that don't have funding from an LSAP program, others, the challenges or barriers that's keeping minorities from going into the sciences. The first thing, and Dr. Dwayne Smith from Harris Stowe, which is one of our institutions, talked about this morning, was just the ill preparation of K-12, students, especially underrepresented minorities. For most of them, which we found out, they boast about their high, in sense, when you look at it, some of their high graduation rates, but when you actually kind of drill down and look at the underrepresented numbers, you find out that, they're a little bit higher there because of a lot of those students have actually left the STEM and went to, other disciplines in the fine arts, the humanities, and some of the others. So they don't stay there, per se. And a lot of that has to do, with their inadequate preparation at the K-12. Another big thing which we saw was finances. So a lot of the students have to work, And as a result, they can't, do due diligence, in the classroom or take care of that research, opportunity that they have to deal with. Another thing, especially in the Midwest, when you're dealing with the Midwest and dealing with a lot of these schools, and they're not in urban environments, there are not a lot of faculty that look like our students. So that was a big factor that played into it. Something else was mentor buy-in. So we all know, for those of us who went through the faculty ranks, I'm a professor of chemistry at Chicago State, and quite frankly, mentorship doesn't count toward tenure and promotion. So you have this conflict where, especially the junior PIs come in very enthusiastic. They really want to work, with underrepresented minorities, but unfortunately, it might take a little bit more time. And as a result, their judgment in a sense become clouded, but they concentrate on, really kind of focusing on getting their tenure, in five or 6 years. The other thing that we all know in the room is that these projects tend to be very, projects are very labor intensive. They take a lot of work to run these programs. And, it's just not a 9 to 5. This is really a 24/7, when you're trying to deal with our students. And then the last thing, of course, is, and Chicago State University is facing it, is dwindling state appropriations. So in our case, as most of you know, we're in the 8th month of not receiving any state appropriations, which is a third of our budget, which makes it very, very difficult to do, what we do. So in a nutshell, that's what we do with LSMCE. We certainly invite your feedback, also your suggestions, and later on we'll be open to any suggestion that you have. And then the last thing I want to put out there while I have the floor, save the date. So our next conference, Prisms of Possibilities, Focus on the Future, is October 28th through the 30th in Chicago, Illinois. And you probably saw on the table in there some of the flyers out there. If you have any questions, just go to lsmce.org and there'll be more information there. Thank you for your time.